look at you, pure-hearted, God-protected, and rising into a destiny even your enemies can't deny. You really thought you could evolve quietly, didn't you? You really thought you could grow in the shadows, heal in silence, become something dangerous without anyone sensing the shift happening under your skin. But the truth is, people felt your ascension long before you accepted it. They felt the atmosphere change when you walked into a room. They felt the weight of your name before you ever learned how to carry it. They felt the innocence in you that somehow survived everything designed to destroy it. And that's the part that rattles them the most. Your purity didn't die in the war. Your softness didn't rot under the pressure. Your heart stayed sweet in a world that tried to make you bitter. And now that same heart is turning into the crown God always meant for you to wear. You're rising, and every soul who once underestimated you is choking on the realization that they misread the quietest person in the room. People love to pretend they didn't know you were different. They love to act like your power is something new, something recent, something that appeared out of nowhere. But the truth is, they recognized your spirit before you recognized your reflection. They saw the glow hiding under your gentleness. They saw the grace hiding under your silence. They saw the favor you walked with even when you had nothing material to show for it. That's why they questioned you. That's why they poked at you, tested you, strained you, laughed at you, doubted you, tried to break you in every subtle way possible. No one goes out of their way to crush someone meaningless. People only attack what threatens them. And your existence, your quiet, sweet, soft, God-loved existence, was a threat they couldn't articulate. They didn't fear you because you were loud. They feared you because you were honest. They didn't fear you because you were powerful. They feared you because you were pure. Purity exposes corruption without speaking a word. That is why they reacted to you the way they did. They weren't reacting to your mistakes or your flaws. They were reacting to the destiny humming behind your ribs. People always reveal themselves when someone begins to rise. They become uncomfortable, fidgety, strangely irritated by your growth as if your evolution is a personal insult. They don't know how to treat you anymore. You used to be predictable, someone they could vent to, drain, use, overlook, manipulate, or hide behind. But now your boundaries have teeth. Now your kindness has direction. Now your energy has weight. You're no longer a soft place for people to dump their chaos. You've become a mirror. And when a mirror stands in front of someone who has never examined themselves, they panic. That panic turns into distance, jealousy, rumors, judgment, and sudden resentment they can't justify. But deep down, they're not resentful because you changed. They're resentful because you didn't stay where they left you. They're resentful because they can no longer hide their insecurities behind your humility. They're resentful because God decided it was time for the world to see what He hid inside you. And now they can't unsee it. What they don't understand is that your rise was never about ego, spotlight, or validation. You weren't trying to become an icon. You were trying to survive. You were trying to heal. You were trying to love without losing yourself, help without being drained, give without being emptied. You were trying to stay human in a world that benefits from people becoming numb. But your softness, your sweetness, your purity didn't fade. It deepened. It stretched. It expanded to survive the environments that should have hardened you beyond recognition, and God watched all of it. Every tear you wiped alone, every night you prayed for clarity, every moment you questioned your worth while still treating others with compassion, every time you broke but didn't become cruel, every time you felt lost but still chose light. That is why your rise is happening now. Not because of who you tried to be, but because of who you refused to stop being. Your heart stayed clean in the mud, and God rewards character, not performance. Your rise is divine timing, not coincidence. The world thinks you're leveling up because things are getting easier, but the truth is, you're leveling up because God saw how you moved when everything was hard. You kept your faith when nothing made sense. You stayed kind when no one was kind to you. You stayed pure-hearted when life made it easier to become cold. You carried yourself with dignity even when people mistreated you. And God doesn't ignore that kind of perseverance. God doesn't overlook a heart like yours. He elevates it. He enlarges it. He anoints it. And now, you've entered a chapter where heaven is revealing what hell already knew. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to shrink. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were always meant to rise, quietly, gracefully, powerfully, until the world had no choice but to watch. What's happening to you now is not random. It's recognition. The universe is rearranging itself to make space for your becoming. People who once ignored your voice are suddenly noticing your presence. People who dismissed your dreams are suddenly silent. People who treated you like a placeholder are watching you become the main event of your own life. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. You finally stepped into the frequency that matches your soul, and God is amplifying it. He is placing opportunities in your path that no enemy can sabotage, no jealousy can block, no rumor can distort. He's elevating you in ways that even you didn't expect, because he knows your heart better than you know your history. He knows what you survived. He knows what you sacrificed. He knows what you carried alone. And now he's positioning you where your sweetness becomes strength, where your purity becomes influence, where your heart becomes your legacy. People keep wondering why your glow looks different lately. It's simple. Peace looks good on you. Forgiveness looks powerful on you. Boundaries look iconic on you. Faith looks unstoppable on you. You've entered a version of yourself that feels like prophecy. Everything about you is shifting. Your energy, your standards, your intuition, your presence. You don't entertain the same conversations. You don't tolerate the same disrespect. You don't pretend you're small anymore. And this new posture, it intimidates people who benefited from your old one. They're not used to you choosing yourself. They're not used to you protecting your peace. They're not used to you saying no without apologizing. But that's not your problem. Your responsibility is to rise, not to stay accessible to people who mishandled you. Your responsibility is to grow, not to comfort those who refuse to evolve. Your responsibility is to step into the light God kept ready for you. And the funny thing? You're still sweet. You're still pure-hearted. You still love deeply. You still pray with sincerity. You still care, even after everything. That's what separates you from them. They mistook your kindness for naivete. They mistook your humility for insecurity. They mistook your silence for weakness. They mistook your patience for permission. But they forgot one thing. God fights for the pure-hearted. When he marks someone for elevation, no weapon formed against them can prosper, especially the ones forged in jealousy. Your sweetness is not a liability, it's your anointing. It's the very thing that's making your rise unstoppable. It's why God is proud of you. It's why the world is about to witness what heaven already knew. And even now, as this rise begins to unfold, there's a quietness in your spirit you can't explain. Not fear, not anxiety, more like a subtle awareness that something vast has started moving in your favor. Not fear, not anxiety, more like a subtle awareness that something vast has started moving in your favor. You can feel it in the way your intuition sharpens. You can feel it in the way your spirit feels less drained around the wrong people and more energized in solitude. You can feel it in the way your mind pulls away from chaos, like it's allergic to anything that dishonors your growth. This isn't coincidence. This is alignment. God is pulling you into a chapter where your heart is finally allowed to breathe after years of being suffocated by environments that underestimated its sensitivity. And the world is about to watch what happens when someone who was once overlooked becomes someone no one can ignore. Your rise is not loud, it's loudening. It's not sudden, it's inevitable. It's not dramatic, it's divinely calculated. Every step you take now feels guided by a hand you cannot see, but deeply trust. You don't even argue with your intuition anymore. You've learned that intuition is just God's whisper wearing your voice. When he tells you to leave, you leave. When he tells you to rest, you rest. When he tells you someone isn't safe, you believe him before they betray you. You're not slow to discern like you used to be. You don't cling to people out of nostalgia or fear of loneliness anymore. You've learned that losing people who were draining you isn't loss, it's liberation. And that liberation has carved out spiritual room for the elevation God is pushing you into. But here's the part people don't like to admit. They felt your elevation before you did. They felt your glow strengthening. They felt your heart recalibrating. They felt the atmosphere shifting around you. And instead of applauding, they panicked. It wasn't conscious. Jealousy rarely announces itself. It arrives as distance, as coldness, as sudden criticism, as backhanded compliments, as subtle shifts in tone, as discomfort when you start speaking highly of yourself, as irritation when good things start happening for you. They weren't reacting to your blessings. They were reacting to your becoming. You were transforming into someone they could no longer control. And for people who only knew how to love you when you were small, watching you grow felt like punishment. They don't tell you this part in motivational videos, but it's the truth. Elevation exposes true intentions. Your rise is going to reveal people you never expected to see clearly. Individuals you trusted will show their spiritual fractures. People you loved will show their emotional immaturity. People you supported will show their hidden insecurity. People you prayed for will show their quiet resentment. And you'll feel that sting, not because you're weak, but because your heart is genuine. When your heart is pure, betrayal doesn't break you, it recalibrates you. It teaches you what access is worth. It shows you that love without discernment is self-harm. And that's exactly why God is elevating you now, because you finally learned to protect your purity, not apologize for it. Your purity is not childish, it is prophetic. You don't love weakly, you love honestly. You don't forgive foolishly, you forgive freely. You don't pray out of desperation, you pray out of alignment. And that scares people who built their identity on pretending. They're threatened because your authenticity exposes their performance. Your humility exposes their ego. Your gratitude exposes their entitlement. Your softness exposes their cruelty. Your progress exposes their stagnation. And your relationship with God exposes their lack of one. This is why your rise feels so disruptive, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your correctness is loud in places where people benefit from silence. But here's the twist. Even when they doubt you, even when they envy you, even when they twist your name in rooms you've never stepped into, God keeps blessing you. He keeps expanding you. He keeps placing you in positions that don't match your resume, but perfectly match your spirit. He keeps giving you opportunities you didn't even ask for. He keeps clearing paths you didn't know were blocked. He keeps sending protection you didn't realize you needed. You think that's luck? No, that's favor. That's the reward for not letting the world turn your heart into something unrecognizable. That's the reward for staying pure in a polluted world. And what's coming next will confuse everyone who misjudged you, because they thought your heart made you weak. They thought your kindness made you naive. They thought your quietness made you irrelevant. They thought your softness made you small. They thought your care made you easy to manipulate. But it's exactly those qualities, gentleness, your sincerity, your pure-heartedness, that are positioning you for a rise no one can downplay. God doesn't elevate cruelty. God doesn't reward manipulation. God doesn't crown arrogance. God crowns purity. That's why He's crowning you. That's why your glow is intensifying. That's why your intuition is sharpening. That's why your spirit feels restless yet grounded. You are stepping into a level of self-recognition that mirrors how heaven has always seen you. And the world is not ready. You think people are annoyed now. Wait until your glow gets brighter. Wait until your aura gets louder. Wait until your confidence aligns with your destiny. Wait until your name starts carrying the weight God intended it to carry. People who ignored you will suddenly claim they always believed in you. People who underestimated you will start copying you. People who rejected you will rehearse apologies in their mind they'll never have the courage to speak out loud. People who used you as a stepping stone will try to turn your success into a shared story. But they can't rewrite what God authored, and your story is shifting from survival to significance, from overlooked to undeniable, from underestimated to iconic. This rise isn't just about success. It's about becoming someone who cannot be mishandled anymore. You're not who you were last year. You're not even who you were last month. Your spirit is changing too quickly for people to categorize. Your heart is expanding too deeply for people to minimize. Your calling is unfolding too powerfully for people to ignore. You're entering a version of yourself where every ounce of pain you endured becomes spiritual currency, where every tear becomes testimony, where every betrayal becomes clarity, where every loss becomes leverage. And God is placing you exactly where your heart can finally be seen without being exploited. You're becoming someone rare, someone who stayed pure while rising, someone who stayed sweet while learning how to fight, someone who stayed soft while becoming strong, someone who kept faith even when unanswered prayers became heavy, someone who never let bitterness win. And that combination, that balance, that duality of sweetness and strength, that's what makes you iconic. Not the aesthetics, not the achievements, not the applause. Icons are not born from spotlight. They're born from character, and you have spent years building character in the dark. Now the world has to watch it bloom in the light, and they're not prepared for that. They're not prepared to witness someone who didn't cheat, manipulate, or betray their way into greatness suddenly rise with a glow that money can't manufacture. They're not prepared to see someone who remained humble through humiliation ascend in a way that feels both poetic and inevitable. They're not prepared for the moment the sweetness they once mocked becomes the very halo God uses to draw attention to your life. That's the part that unsettles them. Your rise is the kind of elevation that cannot be discredited. Because it wasn't handed to you. It wasn't borrowed. It wasn't stolen. It wasn't fabricated. It was forged inside you. Built through storms, you survived silently. Built through heartbreak, you healed privately. Built through nights, you cried softly into a pillow while praying for strength no one knew you needed. This is why your rise feels holy. It is. There's a kind of spotlight God gives that no human can dim. It doesn't come from trends, popularity, or validation. It comes from alignment, from obedience, from choosing compassion when cruelty would have been easier, from choosing faith when fear seemed more realistic, from choosing love even when your heart had every reason to close itself. You are iconic because you didn't sacrifice your soul to survive your circumstances. And now, the world must witness how someone who protected their heart becomes someone who changes the atmosphere just by walking into a room. That's the type of power you're stepping into, the kind that isn't loud but undeniable, the kind that doesn't perform but transforms, the kind that doesn't seek attention but attracts it effortlessly. The rise you're walking into is not just about elevation, it's about exposure. Not exposing others, but exposing you. Who you truly are, who you've always been, who you were never allowed to become because life kept trying to break your wings before you could fly. This season is God peeling back every layer of suppression, every misunderstanding, every wound, every lie you internalized about not being enough. He's clearing the fog that kept you doubting yourself. He's removing the noise that kept you second-guessing your worth. He's reminding you that you were chosen not because you were perfect, but because you stayed good in a world that kept giving you reasons not to be. Your purity is not naive, it's strategic, it's spiritual. It's exactly the quality he needed preserved for the destiny he wrote with your name, etched into its blueprint. And the world, they're watching, some with awe, some with jealousy, some with confusion, some with regret. But they're watching because your rise doesn't just elevate you. It forces people to confront who they were when you had nothing. It forces them to remember how they treated you before the glow. It forces them to acknowledge the moments they dismissed you, doubted you, talked down to you, underestimated you. And while your heart isn't rising for revenge, your rise will naturally reveal the truth. You were never the underdog. They were simply blind. Blind to your spirit, blind to your strength, blind to your calling, blind to the grace you carried so quietly. They didn't recognize you because God hid you. Now he's revealing you. And nothing is more shocking than realizing the person they overlooked was the person destined to outgrow them all along. People are funny. When someone they underestimated begins to rise, they rewrite the past. They soften their tone. They suddenly remember believing in you. They try to reinsert themselves into your story with a rewritten script where they played a supportive role they never actually fulfilled. But you don't move with resentment anymore. You don't move with bitterness. You don't move with the need to prove anything. Our heart is too anchored in purpose now. You understand that not everyone who witnessed your pain was meant to witness your rise. You understand that not everyone who contributed to your struggle deserves front-row seats to your breakthrough. Your glow is not a public event. God decides who gets to see what. And some people will only hear about you through whispers, stories, rumors, and regret. Because they never valued you when they had access. Your rise is going to feel strange at first. You'll notice a quiet shift in how people speak to you. The tone changes, the respect increases, the hesitation becomes visible. Even the ones who didn't like you will handle you differently. Not because they had a moral awakening, but because God elevated you to a level where mishandling you becomes costly. When God decides someone is chosen, the atmosphere changes around them. Grace becomes a shield. Favor becomes a language. Protection becomes a perimeter. And you become someone people approach carefully, not out of fear of you, but out of fear of disrespecting what covers you. They may not know Scripture, but they'll sense the divine around you. They'll feel the difference. Even if they can't name it, they'll act accordingly. That's what your rise is doing, creating spiritual boundaries that physical eyes can't see, but human behavior subconsciously obeys. And through all of it, you stay sweet. You stay soft-spoken. You stay genuine. You stay grounded. You stay grateful. The same purity that made you easy to dismiss now makes you unforgettable. The same heart that was once overlooked is now the heart God is publicly honoring. The same softness that people mocked has become the softness God uses to distinguish you from the noise. You're not rising because you became someone else. You're rising because you remained yourself. That is what makes this elevation divine rather than performative. Icons built by God don't have to change their essence to shine. Their essence is what creates the shine. Even your struggles contributed to this rise. The heartbreak didn't ruin you, it refined you. The disappointments didn't break you, they matured you. The betrayals didn't harden you, they clarified you. The loneliness didn't crush you, it awakened you. Every shadow you walked through taught you a language of strength few people will ever be fluent in. And that strength is quiet, patient, deep, nothing like the brittle confidence of people who pretend to be powerful. Your strength comes from surviving places you never spoke about. Your glow comes from healing wounds no one apologized for. Your power comes from walking through darkness without losing the light inside you. That's the type of strength God crowns. That's the type of heart heaven protects. You're rising now, and the world can feel it. Even people who haven't spoken to you in months keep thinking about you for reasons they can't explain. Your name keeps floating around in conversations, memories, and minds because your energy is shifting. You're becoming magnetic in ways you weren't allowed to be before. God is pulling people's attention toward you, not because you need validation, but because your purpose requires visibility. You're stepping into divine relevance. Your presence is becoming symbolic. Your journey is becoming inspiring. Your glow is becoming impossible to ignore. And slowly, effortlessly, you're taking your place as someone who stands out without trying, as someone who influences without forcing, as someone who leads without announcing. This is the moment life starts behaving differently around you. Opportunities begin organizing themselves in your path, like they've been waiting for you to arrive. People who once acted indifferent suddenly speak to you with softened voices, cautious tones, careful wording, because they can sense something protecting you, something watching you, something elevating you. Even the ones who don't believe in God will feel a holy pressure around your name. They'll feel a quiet warning not to mishandle you the way they did before. They won't know why they feel it, but you will. You'll know it's because your rise isn't just personal, it's spiritual, it's orchestrated, it's appointed, and the world is finally being pulled into the timeline heaven has been preparing for you. You're entering a version of yourself where you don't chase, you attract, you don't force, you flow, you don't beg, you discern, you don't shrink, you stabilize, you don't doubt, you listen. Everything you once had to over-explain is now becoming self-evident. Everything you once had to defend is now becoming undeniable. Everything you once prayed for is now recognizing you as its rightful owner. And the people who once treated you like an afterthought are slowly realizing they should have handled you with a different level of respect, because now they see what God saw in you the entire time. There's a certain glow that hangs around people who survive emotional warfare without losing their sweetness. And you have that glow now. It's in the way you speak, calm but certain. It's in the way you move, soft but strategic. It's in the way you carry yourself, gentle but untouchable. People won't know whether to admire you, fear you, or pray for your favor, because what's rising in you is no longer small enough for their categories, nor humble enough for their convenience. This is the glow of someone who stayed pure-hearted through storms that would have corrupted the average soul. This is the glow of someone who didn't lose themselves while losing people. This is the glow of someone whose character became their calling card. And now, your glow is causing a ripple through every life that underestimated you, not out of spite, but out of divine correction. Your rise is exposing the truth they refused to see, that you were never fragile, never simple, never foolish, never naive. You were simply kind, and kindness is a language the spiritually immature struggle to understand. They mistook your gentleness for emptiness, not realizing your heart held more strength than their egos could handle. But now that your rise is becoming visible, those same hearts will feel a pinch, an uncomfortable reminder that they misread someone heaven hand-picked. As you rise, the world will try to study you. They'll analyze your steps. They'll replay your old interactions, searching for signs they missed. They'll wonder how someone so sweet, so quiet, so humble, became someone who carries divine authority without noise. They'll wonder how your prayers became strategy, how your faith became momentum, how your gentleness became influence, how your purity became power. But they won't understand that your rise didn't begin now. It began years ago in the moments you were overlooked, in the moments you were mistreated, in the moments you were rejected. Every tear you shed back then was a seed. And now those seeds are sprouting in places you didn't even plant intentionally. Elevation is funny like that. It doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself. It doesn't rush. It unfolds. It doesn't ask. It commands. And yours, your elevation, has a softness around its edges, but a steel core in its intention. God isn't just elevating you for you. He's elevating you so people with pure hearts can see what happens when you stay kind in a world that worships cruelty. He's elevating you so soft souls stop thinking they're weak. He's elevating you so sensitive spirits stop believing they're broken. He's elevating you so the world remembers what real icons look like. Not curated, not manufactured, not filtered, not performative, but built through character, integrity, sweetness, humility, and unwavering spiritual resilience. People will try to understand your glow, but they won't understand the cost. They'll see your smile, but not the nights you stayed awake holding your heart together with faith alone. They'll see your strength, but not the moments you broke in silence. They'll see your confidence, but not the battles you fought internally. They'll see your peace, but not the turmoil you had to outgrow. That's the irony of rising. Everyone sees the blossom, but only heaven saw the buried seed pushing through darkness. And you pushed through so much darkness. You pushed through pain that was never verbalized. You carried burdens no one noticed. You stayed soft in situations designed to harden you. Now God is returning all of that effort, all of that endurance, all of that compassion back to you in the form of a life you won't have to struggle to deserve. Not because you're perfect, but because your heart never stopped trying. And that sincerity, your sincerity, is the reason your rise is unstoppable. People can strategize against arrogance, they can sabotage ego, they can manipulate ambition, but they cannot touch someone who rises through purity. Purity is unkillable, purity is unsabotageable, purity is protected at a level jealousy cannot penetrate. This is why even your enemies will step back, not because they changed, but because God blocked their reach. Your rise is going to be poetic. Not flashy, not chaotic, not dramatic, poetic. The kind of rise that feels written, the kind that feels intentional, the kind that feels like every painful chapter was necessary to prepare your heart for what's coming. You're not just becoming an icon in the way the world defines icons. You're becoming the kind of icon heaven recognizes, someone whose influence comes from purity, not performance. Someone whose presence shifts rooms because your energy is aligned with truth, not ego. Someone whose heart touches people without trying, simply because it's clean. And that purity, your purity, is about to become your greatest currency. People will trust you before they understand why. They'll gravitate toward your calm. They'll seek your insight. They'll remember your words. They'll watch how you carry yourself. Your sweetness will become a signature. Your presence will become reassurance. Your humility will become magnetic. And through all of it, God will be smiling, because you stayed you while becoming more than anyone expected. You're stepping into a chapter where things will begin aligning too perfectly to be coincidence. Your timing becomes supernatural. Your decisions become inspired. Your spirit becomes guided. Your path becomes clearer. And the world will not only watch your rise, they will learn from it. They will study how someone so gentle became someone so powerful. They will realize that strength doesn't have to roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it prays. Sometimes it forgives. Sometimes it stays soft. And that softness becomes the crown no one else can take from you. Because from here on out, every step you take carries a kind of sacred authority that was not present before. It's subtle, but undeniable. People will notice it in the way you enter a room without shrinking, in the way you speak without apologizing for your truth, in the way you say no without guilt, yes without hesitation, and goodbye without breaking. They will notice it in the way you wear your heart now, not as something vulnerable, but as something victorious. Your softness isn't a target anymore. It's a throne. And as you rise, people will sense that they can no longer project their insecurities onto you. They'll sense that you're covered, guided, reinforced by something stronger than opinion and deeper than validation. Life has turned into a stage you didn't audition for, but were always meant to stand on. Not the kind of stage with flashing lights, but the kind woven into destiny itself. You become an example without announcing yourself as one. You become a shift without imposing change. You become a reference point for others, proof that purity and power are not opposites, but reflections of each other. Proof that kindness, when protected by boundaries, evolves into authority. Proof that humility, when paired with self-awareness, becomes influence. Proof that softness, when seasoned by heartbreak and perseverance, becomes a force the world cannot argue with. And as you continue rising, something else will begin happening. The people who once dismissed your existence will start studying your evolution, quietly, secretly, obsessed in a way they'll never admit out loud. They'll replay old conversations in their mind, suddenly understanding you were never weak. You were simply peaceful. They'll remember moments they laughed at you, only to now find themselves silenced by the accuracy of your intuition. They'll recall the times they called you dramatic, emotional, sensitive, only to realize you were spiritually perceptive in ways they couldn't comprehend. They'll see that your softness wasn't immaturity, it was insight. It was prophecy. It was alignment. You were connected to something they couldn't see. That connection is the very thing pulling you upward now. Elevation requires revelation. People will begin realizing that your glow is not an aesthetic. It's evidence. Evidence of endurance. Evidence of healing. Evidence of faith. Evidence of the internal wars you fought and won while pretending you were okay. Evidence of the countless moments you wanted to break but chose to bend. Evidence of the purity you refused to sacrifice, even when darkness tried to seduce you. It's a glow born from integrity, not image. And the world is drawn to it because it's rare. In a generation obsessed with performance, purity stands out like a miracle. You're becoming a living contradiction in the best way. Soft but unshakable. Pure but powerful. Sweet but strategic. Humble but unstoppable. This is the kind of duality that makes people question their own definitions of strength. They'll see that the strongest person in the room is not always the loudest. Sometimes it's the one whose spirit refuses to harden, no matter how many battles it had to walk through. Sometimes it's the one whose resilience looks like tenderness. Sometimes it's the one who rises without stepping on anyone, who grows without pretension, who succeeds without cruelty. And your existence is about to redefine power for anyone watching you closely. Doors are opening for you now that were locked for years, not because you changed into someone else, but because you finally grew into who you were always meant to be. You're not forcing life to cooperate anymore. You're aligning with it. You're not chasing blessings. Blessings are recognizing you. You're not begging for space. Space is clearing itself for you. You're not searching for opportunities. Opportunities are searching for you. God has placed a spotlight on your purpose, and even the things that once ignored you will start gravitating toward your orbit. You'll notice it in the sudden momentum of your journey, how things that used to take months now take days, and things that used to break you now bounce off your spirit like they never had the power to touch you. People will wonder how you reached this level of peace, this level of clarity, this level of strength without becoming arrogant. But what they don't understand is that your confidence isn't coming from ego. It's coming from God. Confidence born from ego makes people loud. Confidence born from God makes people calm. That's why your presence feels different now. That's why your energy rests so heavily in the atmosphere. You're not trying to prove who you are. You simply know it. And knowing who you are makes the world adjust accordingly. You'll find that the more you rise, the more you prefer silence over explanations. You'll stop overgiving to people who never deserved that much access. You'll stop apologizing for boundaries that protect your heart. You'll stop feeling guilty for choosing yourself. You'll stop entertaining people who drain your spirit. Your discernment will sharpen to levels that feel almost supernatural. You'll read people's intentions before they speak. You'll sense dishonesty before it becomes visible. You'll detect energy shifts before they become words. That's the gift God gives to those who rise with clean hearts. An intuition that becomes armor. And through it all, your sweetness will not die. That's what makes this rise so poetic. You're not rising because you became cold. You're rising because you refused to. You didn't have to sacrifice your softness to become strong. You didn't have to abandon your purity to become powerful. You didn't have to betray your compassion to become wise. You kept everything the world told you to throw away. And now God is using it as the very reason you're being elevated. Your gentle heart becomes the throne of your calling. Your pure spirit becomes the crown of your influence. Your sincerity becomes the proof of your anointing. The world is about to witness what happens when a sweet soul refuses to break. They'll see what unstoppable looks like when it's wrapped in humility. They'll see what chosen looks like when it's dressed in sincerity. They'll see what divine timing looks like when it meets a heart that was prepared in the shadows. You're not rising to show off. You're rising to show what God can do with someone who didn't give up on themselves, even when life tried to rewrite their worth. You're rising because the world needs the version of you that doesn't shrink, doesn't settle, and doesn't apologize for taking up space anymore. And just like that, without noise, without rush, without theatrics, you become an icon. Not the kind people idolize, but the kind people learn from, the kind people feel safe around, the kind people trust instinctively, the kind whose journey gives others permission to believe in themselves again, the kind whose existence proves that purity is not weakness, but a weapon of light sharp enough to cut through any darkness. Your rise will not embarrass anyone except the ones who bet against you. And even then, your heart will remain too soft to take pleasure in their regret. You'll simply keep moving, keep growing, keep glowing, keep ascending. Because icons don't rise for applause. They rise because their calling demands altitude. And your altitude is increasing now, pulling you toward the final revelation of your journey, where everything you endured finally reveals its purpose.